Hi everyone, this is JERVIEL and you're watching YWork TV. Today is the second interview, right? My time with. And so today, who am I spending the time with? I'm spending the time with Siok Siok. She is a very well-known producer for the very well-known and widely known documentary Twittamentary. Some of you may have heard it, some of you may not, so you can Google about it. But basically, it's actually a documentary about Twitters. And you may be wondering what's so interesting about documentary about Twitter. It's actually a very interesting documentary, not just about what is Twitter and what are the tips of using Twitter. It's actually talking about people who use Twitter and how Twitter impact their lives. So interestingly, you'll get to find out, watch about how the homeless find homes through Twitter, how customers get service recovery through Twitter and such. So really, it's a very interesting thing. It used to be shown in Singapore earlier this year, so hopefully it gets to come out in DVD or some sort like that, right? So I'm very happy to have Siok actually with me on this platform to share with us, her experiences, because right now she moved from regional producer to right now entrepreneur of herself in China, and she has a lot of experiences, and I'm glad that she's able to use this platform to share with you her story and some tips that she has in terms of entrepreneurship. So without further ado, let us move the time to Siok now. So hi everyone, this is JERVIEL and you're watching YWork TV. Today we are very honored and I'm very excited to have a very well-known producer of Twittamentary, and her name is Siok. Hi Siok!
Hi!
Hi!
Hi! Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you want to say anything to the people in Singapore?
Yeah, no, I'm Singaporean and I'm always pleased to share my work with fellow Singaporeans, especially young people, because I think a lot of I'm very interested in that, and I think a big motivation for doing Twittamentary is actually to also be able to share what I've learned about social media and how it has changed the way we share and create and share content with people, but especially people who are learning about it in schools, universities, graduate schools. So I'm very thrilled to be interviewed by you.
Right, okay, so you were just talking about Twittamentary, so let's just go a little bit into that, right? I suppose many people ask you this, but what makes you really want to do this documentary, which is so different from the rest? And back then, I mean, Twitter was not very talked about as compared to Facebook back then. What makes you do this?
I think there's I think I was because I come from a TV background, I was a TV producer for a long time, and so social media was new to me. It was kind of like a brand new way of communicating and to me. And I think I was very fascinated by it because I think at first I thought that it wasn't it was something quite trivial and superficial and all that. But I found when I had just finished making my Olympics documentary in 2007, that surprisingly a lot of people who were the most helpful in terms of promoting the film voluntarily were actually people that I know on Twitter, many of whom I have never met in real life. And I think that was a moment of kind of epiphany for me. I suddenly realized that, wow, this could really be, this is really very powerful. But at the same time, I found that at that time it was very difficult for me to explain to people quite how it worked. Because I think I found that either people are really into Twitter and they can't stop talking about it, or they are not into Twitter at all and think that it's crazy.
Yeah, on the other side, which is Facebook.
That's right. And I thought that it was actually very challenging in terms of making a film, because I think when I talk about a documentary about Twitter, I think a lot of people imagine it to be interview, expert people talking about how you should get how to get more followers, how to use Twitter, and then screenshots on the computer or the mobile phone. But I think it was a challenge for me to make a watchable film that has heart, that actually move people and people can get it at a human level. And instead of just kind of explanation or people pontificating about social media, it probably counts as one of the most difficult films I've ever had to make because it's actually very, very difficult to make something that's actually in people's minds. People think that Twitter is on Twitter, but Twitter is not on Twitter. Twitter is actually in the hearts and minds of those who use it. It's actually about the exchange, but it's also how you build a relationship through the exchange. It's about the text, but it's also about the subtext of that exchange. And everything that you accumulate, in terms of your knowledge and sense of intimacy with the other person or a group of people. So I think that's why I took it up.
Yeah, I must say I was very impacted when I watched Twittamentary. I was actually on course, and I was so intrigued by this entire documentary because it's really very different. Yeah, like what you say, it's not about this is Twitter. These are the 3 tips of how to get followers. It's not that homeless people finding home and about the porn star and all that. I think it was really how Twitter impact all of us on a very day-to-day level. And so from there, Twittamentary is about how Twitter impact our lives. How has Twitter impacted your life now that right now you are into Twitter?
Twitter has ruined my life.
Oh, why?
So Twittamentary has ruined my life. No, I'm just joking. I think I think it has a major impact in many ways. I feel that I think Twitter and my use of it, I guess my participation in the Twitter conversation or the community has actually in a way helped me find a new direction or new career, I guess, kind of, because I was a TV producer and I missed all the different ways of the internet revolution. I didn't blog, I didn't get blogging, I missed every trend there was when it comes to using the web. But I think what happened was I started using Twitter in late 2007, and it's actually not about using Twitter, but by using Twitter, I became part of a virtual community online at that time of a community of innovators, entrepreneurs, bloggers, venture capitalists, developers, early adopters, and they are from across a few countries, mainly the US, Singapore, China, and later on there were people from Europe as well, and Australia, other parts. And actually by becoming part of this community, I started really shifting, but not consciously. I didn't sit here and think that, I'm going to have to reinvent myself. But I can't help but shift, because every day the people I'm talking to are people who are part of this community, who think about, the trends, the new trends, what's happening next. They're the first people to adopt the latest technology. So I think I think the biggest impact that Twitter has had on my life is actually helping me shift from traditional media to new media, or we should really say social media or current media, because I think by now it's the dominant way that a lot of people use to share content and to make content. So I think that's the biggest impact, that it fundamentally changed the direction of my own career, and I think also the other thing that's interesting was that it helped me think about myself and my own work in a very different way. I think I used to think about it as Singapore, and then later on in my career, I thought of it as Pan-Asian, because I started doing work that was being shown across Asia. But now I actually really think about my work as global, not in a grandiose way, not like, everyone around the world watches it or anything like that, but it's actually more the fact that the possibility of global reach is actually ever present. For example, about 2 nights ago, I was in Kunming taking part in this documentary forum, but Twittamentary screened in Karachi, Pakistan. don't ask me how that happened. It's just like how did this little film end up being shown in Karachi? It got a review in the English newspaper in Karachi. It has also been shown in Tel Aviv. Has also been shown in China. Has also been shown in Singapore. So in Germany, in London, and the UK, etc. So I think it really made me think of my work as global, and also it changed the way that I relate to the audience. I think it changed the way that I connect with the people in the films I make, but also people who watch the film. So someone like you, that in the past, I wouldn't even know who watched the film, but now, we are on a Skype call, we are doing this chat, and there were many other people like you, people who I've met during the screenings, but people that I met online. And I think what's amazing is that people continue to do nice things for the film, without me asking them. Like, I never ask people to arrange a screening or recommend the film to someone else, but somehow people have always done that. And like, it's very strange because I think it's one of those things where I feel like, oh, I'm done with the film. I've done so many screenings. I have enough. And then right as I'm thinking that way, then I get an email saying, can I screen it in Malaysia? Can I screen it in Jakarta? Can I screen it in Russia or something like that? So I think that's what it means to actually be, I think, connected to community. Actually, the community takes the film in the direction that I haven't quite anticipated. So,
wow. So Twitter or social media has impacted your life, and it seems to impact the community or the society or around the world. I'm writing from there. I'm very curious about one thing is that I think social media is a double-edged sword. Right, it can create impact, positive impact, it can also create negative impact. And we have seen cases of how people use social media to create movement or extremism and all that. So what is your guiding principle when it comes to using social media? Because I think there are a lot of Gen Ys out there in Singapore, across the globe. They kind of live a double standard life. Like, when I go to work, I'm this personality. But when I'm on Twitter, I'm like totally different and all that. But it kind of affects them of how the society sees them, because if they got found out or stuff like that. So what is your guiding principle when it comes to using social media?
I think my guiding principle is actually very simple. I think the first principle is actually to be authentic. But being authentic doesn't mean you have to tell everyone everything all the time. The thing about authenticity is that I think it's simply the safest bet. Because it's very difficult I think over time, people will get to know you anyway. Because it's very difficult to keep your guard up, or pretend
to be something that you're not.
For months and months and months. I make sure that I'm comfortable for it to be in the newspapers tomorrow. If someone were to use it as a headline in the newspaper tomorrow, I'm okay with it. Because I think it's a very good rule of thumb that that. Because I think that in some ways you have to assume that your social media content, everything that you share, will live on forever.
Yeah.
I think that that's something that I think being more so. I think when you talk about young people using social media, I think being more sophisticated in the way to understand that nothing is ever a direct carbon copy of yourself. You don't tell everyone everything about yourself. You have to be aware that it's a public identity, or it's a semi-public identity, and I think that litmus test helped me a lot. If it's going to be in the Straits Times tomorrow, front page, am I okay with it? I think that's the second principle. I think the third principle is actually also has brought me a lot of help, I guess, goodwill. Is that it's always more important to pay attention to people than to hope for other people to pay attention to you.
Wow.
Because I feel that I think people have this mistaken notion that Twitter or everything online is about how many people follow you. who follow you.
Who likes your
And
posts?
yeah, and actually, one of the first things I always tell people is that for Twitter at least, the important thing is actually who you follow, especially at the beginning. Because what happens is that you never get to know one person. For example, if I connect with you, I'll connect with your village or your community. I'll connect with the 12, 15, 20 or more people that you're connected to. And it's actually the community or the overlapping communities that brings power to the use of Twitter. So like for me, for example, I actually was very lucky because when I first got on Twitter, it was still very early. It was like before it went mainstream. And the first few people I followed were very savvy. They were the early adopters. They've been through all the different ways of blogging and everything else like that. And I think what happened then, because I started with a few very sophisticated people, I think what I ended up doing is actually I built on that foundation. And I therefore kind of earned me a membership in some of the kind of early adopters community. I think people, when they get on Twitter, they make the mistake of first of all, maybe for one thing, following only people that they know, they know in real life, which actually could be very good friends in real life, but they could be very boring on Twitter because they're always posting about their lunch and how they fought with their boyfriend or girlfriend. But actually, it's not very useful in terms of actually understanding the power of social media. I think the better way to go about it is actually follow people that share interesting ideas, follow people that sometimes you may not even like in person, but they make you think.
Thought-provoking.
Yeah, they're thought-provoking, they make you think. You might disagree with them sometimes. And I think to focus on community is actually the interconnections amongst people. It's just like I think the power of Twitter to me is not just that I know this person, that person, or that there's this famous blogger that was following me, but rather because, whether it's in Singapore or the US or anywhere else in China, I tend to know a cluster of people that also know one another. For example, in China, it will be a cluster of bloggers or journalists or entrepreneurs. In the US, it's the same, social marketers, opinion leaders. And I think that's the important concept to know, that it really only becomes very powerful when you are connected to communities of people rather than one interesting person or another, a celebrity of some sort. I think it's actually to be part of that community, it's to be part of that conversation about the current trends. That's also very important that I learned from my friends on Twitter early on, is that I find that those who are really, really, really good at using Twitter, they often they often make an effort to meet people offline.
Wow.
Like they meet online, but they are also they very quickly will meet some of the people they know online offline. And I think it's the whole idea of high tech, high touch. Because and I find that once I met someone offline, even though I might have met them maybe 9 months later or 12 months after I first got to know them on Twitter, or we may only meet 2-3 times a year, but once you meet in real life, you actually solidify the connection, and you immediately get a much more palpable sense of the other person.
Okay, so it means that I need to go and get my tickets to Beijing for like this year.
Yeah, you should. Oh, yeah.
Okay.